Hello and welcome everyone to LCS Academy week number 8. My name is Eric Desrooks Beltran. Joining me is Joshua Joshi Howard, and week number 8, Joshi, week number 8 of 9. We are at the home stretch, and this is where the lock-ins start to happen.
It is. We're going to get a lot of teams starting to find out if they're going to be in playoffs or not. Most of them are rather comfortable in where their positions are based on how games have been going throughout the regular season, but some of them going to be knocked out, some of them going to be able to secure their spot here today.
Well, we are coming towards the end of the season, but why don't we take a look back on some of the stats of the season with our Samsung Fast 5. Now, not too much has changed here, Joshi. It's still the same from the last week. You know, Diamond holding down that position even though he's in the LCS.
True, I mean, that's what happens when you're that good. You're just going to be able to be that much faster than everybody else, and I think it's really impressive when you see these numbers come that quickly, right? You're noticing that there's a lot of clustering in these numbers, but Diamond got a full minute faster than Newbie, who only has about 10 seconds on Isles coming after that. And the other place we got to look is bot lane, where Team Luke and Luger full 2 minutes faster than Sven and being able to actually get to that 10k gold mark.
And CLG not letting go of that spot as well. They might be in the last place spot, but Tian and Kill, they're holding it up there at the very top when it comes to the 100 fastest CS and the fastest level 6. But that is our top 5 right there, and I wonder if that's going to change anymore as we do head into this week's games of play, as we haven't seen too much variability. It's very hard to be able to beat those stats, and that's for sure, Joshi.
I mean, we'll look at that a little bit more. Obviously, today we got a bunch of games that are going to have a lot of effects on the standings going into the rest of the season. EGA, IMTA going to be our first series of the day, and then CLG versus FlyQuest might have an opportunity to see some of those numbers change because we got the number 10 and the number 1 playing. We'll end it out with Dignitas going up against Cloud9 Academy today.
Yeah, and definitely a lot of hype with these matches. You know, EG have begun their ascent. They overtook Cloud9. Immortals are trying to do a climb of their own, so very tense when it comes to competition over there. You know, the CLG versus FlyQuest, that's pretty much David and Goliath. CLG are a team that like to do upsets every now and then, and the one that does surround it off, again, it's a battle for playoffs. You're trying to get those last stats. You're trying to hold the throne with the Cloud9 versus Dignitas matchup, but of course, we still have other games going on. Be sure to check out the Nerd Street stream. That is twitch.tv/NerdStreetLOL. All one word. You'll catch Mad Magical and Rebel Fox there. They will be covering Golden Guardians versus 100 Thieves and Team Solo Mid versus Team Liquid. But now we got to get into today, right? Everything that's going on. FlyQuest is the only team that's mathematically locked in, but there's still a lot in the air with these upcoming matches, Joshi.
It's really exciting to see how close this is even towards the end. CLG technically isn't mathematically locked out, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later on because we are going to be seeing their games. Immortals are in a spot where if they win one game at all, not just today, but for the rest of the season, they will be knocking Cloud9 out of playoffs contention. And their first team that they're trying to do it up against is going to be Evil Geniuses Academy, and we're almost towards the end here of just saying goodbye to contracts because he's going to be going up to LCS soon.
Yeah, contracts will be going to LCS. Coming in from the Evil Geniuses Prodigy roster will be Tomio. So that's exciting to see. That's definitely exciting to hear. Evil Geniuses overall, they've been shaping up quite well in the later half of this season. They did get the 2-0 against Dig yesterday, which gave them that 4th place spot. They got a lot of talented individuals inside of their roster, but only problem is they've kind of been the kings of the 1-1. They're trying to change that now, and this next matchup is extremely crucial for Evil Geniuses, given the heavyweights they have ahead of them in week number 9 with 100 Thieves and FlyQuest.
Those are both going to be some tough opponents, right? Evil Geniuses are currently only 3 games ahead of TSM and Immortals, who are currently at that cutoff mark in order to make their way into playoffs. Whereas Immortals, they are right on the cusp. They really need to start picking up these wins, like we said. They are currently winning against TSM in the head-to-head, and that will give them the tiebreak if nothing else changes in the standings. So Immortals, they want to try and give themselves a little bit of a buffer, and I think, looking at it, this might be an opportunity for them to do so, because you talked about contracts, you talked about how we're going to be seeing him moving up to LCS soon. Watching him and Jojo play, these are 2 players that are very individually talented, but have been kind of plagued by inconsistency recently, leading to a lot of the ties.
Yeah, it's definitely been very rough for Evil Geniuses to get that consistency going where they can get those wins, because you look at the roster, Jojo, Pion, Tony top, These are players that I absolutely adored. These are definitely darlings when it came to the amateur scene and how well they performed. Looking over at Immortals, when we talk about darlings, though, you got to look at Viper and Anda, right? Because we saw Proving Grounds. We saw what Norg was able to do. Immortals were able to grab the top end of that Norg roster, slot them in. Not seeing the results they wanted, but now that Anda and Viper have been able to show up in person with the team, we're starting to see that turnaround. We're starting to see that consistency. They're getting 2-0s against bottom of the pack teams, as well as consistent 1-1s with the middle of the pack teams. They are starting to show up now.
And we're still seeing some of the spice that we were used to when these guys were playing for no org. Viper is still bringing out the Vayne pick from time to time, and it shows how focused the Immortal squad really is going to be on the top side of the map. These are a couple of very talented players, and on the other side, you have Keith and Joey who are going to be holding out in the bot lane. And while they are strong players, it's definitely worth noting that they don't get the same amount of attention from Anda around the map. Viper and Imprity definitely seem to know that their win condition lies in the top half, and you see them play that way.
Most definitely. You definitely see a little bit of resources going down to Keith and Joey as well. They have been opening up with their champion pool, with what they're allowed to go. We've seen a lot of the Callista Thresh come up, as well as the Ziggs. So they are flexing around with their resources. Meanwhile, on the side of Evil Geniuses, oh my god, do I love the top half of their map. Having Contracts and Tony top, they're very, very brutal to have to deal with. But this is going to be a showdown now, because we have powerhouses on the other side as well, in Viper and Anda. So this top end is going to be very competitive for both of these squads.
I think so. I'm imagining that we're going to be getting a lot of back and forth between Anda and Contracts. These are two names that we're used to seeing up in the LCS, where they really made their reputations for themselves as being these strong carry junglers. And so it's really going to depend on how the rest of the team is going to be able to move around that. What kind of flips are Contracts and Anda going to be willing to take? Because I know we've heard criticism before that they're willing to go for really big risks over a Raptor camp, but sometimes, hey, that Raptor camp, if you get a kill along with it, can be worth a lot more than you initially bargained for.
Most definitely, most definitely. We did set the matter straight that Evil Geniuses do have a hard schedule ahead of them when it comes to week number 9. It's the same thing for Immortals. Cloud9 and Team Liquid are no pushovers to have to go through. So for both of these squads, this is honestly my highlight match of the day, just because of the implications this match has based on whoever's able to come out ahead.
I guess we gotta start talking about how we expect it to actually shake out, right? I think we're probably looking at a 1-1 between these guys today, and that will, again, notably be knocking CLG out of contention, but it'll also help to secure both these team spots as they continue to maintain their echelon, or their spots in the upper echelons, and I think it'll really come down to what kind of consistency we're seeing from Evil Geniuses.
I mean, that's why we've been talking about it. This ladder, it's the last chance. It's do or die. There's no second chances after this one. Immortals, just one more win to knock out CLG from ever getting to the playoffs, but they want much more than that as they take on Evil Geniuses, ready to head into Champions Select. LeBlanc getting taken off the map right away.
A little bit surprising. It's something that we haven't seen JoJoPion play a lot of, partly because it's been banned rather often. But the Xin Zhao also going to be taken through, and I think it's worth noting that when I think of JoJoPion, and I'm a little sad about this, he hasn't been able to play as Ryze recently at all, simply because the champion hasn't been perceived as good for quite a while. But even when it wasn't, at the top of the meta, we were still seeing it played. Instead, very meta stuff going through. LeBlanc, Ziggs, Xin Zhao all taken off, and I think we're going to be in place for a pretty normal draft between these two teams. We're not seeing a whole lot of weird pocket picks out of most players, except for Viper's top lane pool.
We do see the Ryze every now and then. It is definitely a rarity, though. I would love to see it picked by Evil Geniuses, see JoJo on it. But going through more of the draft, JoJo has been quite a flexible mid laner, so he's hard to definitely target and try and take out. Just in the last 4 games, he's played Aurelia. He's been able to play the Sylas, the Lulu, the Set. So a lot of variety when it comes to the champs he picks. As the next band comes out, it's going to be Jax.
Interesting. That is a Tony Top special. I'm curious what that actually tells us about what Viper is going to play, because he plays a lot of auto attackers traditionally, and Jax tends to be good against a lot of them, having the freedom to scale up just because of the interaction with the Counter-Strike. And the Callista taken off actually targets both Keith and Viper to a lesser degree, simply because that is something we have seen him play in the past. But with Immortals, with the freedom to pick whatever they want, they are going to be going for the Gwen, leaving potentially a Viego to go over to Evil Geniuses Academy. And hey, look at that. They're already hovering in. They've already already locked it.
Oh, they're going rapid fire with these picks right now. You already called it the Gwen. It's going to be Lulu and Viego on the other side for Evil Geniuses Academy. Not too much of a surprise there. Lulu does bring a lot of support in the fact that she has a lot of utility, but a lot of oppression when it comes to lane as well. So up to Immortals to try and take their next pick.
This kind of says to me that it's probably going to be going over to Jojo Pyun. We've been seeing him play a lot more of the supportive style recently, simply because it works. It's very effective. It also allows Tony Top and Contracts to have a lot of extra tools to go for some of these skirmishes that we've seen. Lulu, one of the best 2v2 champions in the game, and if you know you're going to be running around with Contracts, it makes a lot of sense to just grab it early.
Love seeing the Thresh picked up. Thresh has been one of those champions where it just really slots into any team. You can toss him however you see fit, as Aphelios gets locked in as well. I see you laughing, giving a good giggle at that Teemo hover. Yeah, if only we could see that world where it does go through. But instead, gonna hover over to the Nautilus now and locking that one in, making sure that support champion pool doesn't get pinched out in the second phase of bans.
Makes sense too. I mean, we've always talked about how strong Nautilus is into exactly Thresh because of the interaction between their two Qs. Thresh winds up, he slows himself down, he roots himself, and then Nautilus has an easy time to go in, and Nautilus just tends to do more damage these days. But with the bans already coming, or the bans starting to come through, we're going to have to take stock of where these two teams are going, and we haven't seen as much coming out from Immortals in terms of what their draft is. They're not confirming anything other than what their bot lane is, whereas Evil Geniuses, with this Nautilus locked in, there were rumblings a while ago about maybe it being jungle, but that hasn't really panned out, so we're pretty sure this Lulu, as we've already said, going into the mid lane, which does give Immortals a potential avenue to attack.
Oh, definitely doubt it going into the jungle, just because it's a Mystique's champion as well. Mystique's loves grabbing this Nautilus in most of the games that he does play. In the last 4 games of 11-14, he's played Nautilus in 3 out of 4 of those. Only exception was Leona. More bans to come through. Now targeting the ADC pool is going to be Immortals as they take down Varus, taking it away from Team Luke.
I like that a lot. I remember when we were watching yesterday, we saw this run back 2 times as Golden Glue was just like, yeah, we were expecting the Varus Nautilus to, do somewhere between Game 1 and Game 2. Game 1, they had a 20 CS lead. Game 2, they got kills starting at level 1. So it's definitely a very strong lane going up against Thresh. Aphelios want to take it away, and the Lee Sin being removed from the pool of Immortals as well. I mean, we just don't know just about anything about the top half of the Immortals Academy roster of where any of their champions are going to go.
So that Lee Sin ban is one of the most common bans when it comes over to Immortal side of things, but that's going to be taken away from them. They're not going to even have the chance to ban it away. Instead, Team Luke, happy to grab the Jinx. Going to have that going over in the bot lane, get a hyperscaler going on.
Something that we haven't been seeing in a lot of teams is this Jinx, simply because it can have a little bit of a punishable early game. It's not going to necessarily do a whole lot against Aphelios early on. It's mostly going to be on Mystique's Nautilus to try and affect this early lane. Whereas on the other hand, we are seeing Immortals starting to come through. I mean, the Lucian does a decent job of potentially punishing the Lulu, but it also can be flexed towards the top lane, and I'm really expecting another flexible pick so that Viper in particular can decide which of these champions he actually wants to play.
Now what I'm seeing from Evil Genius's side, as we do get the hover over there to the Nico, is the fact that you have a lot of resets and you have a lot of support, you have a lot of utility. Once this team is able to start getting kills, it's going to be very hard to stop Evil Geniuses from chaining it into another and into another, and hey, Zach getting locked in for Immortals. It's been a hot minute since we've seen this, Joshi.
Let's go, Zachary. I think the scary thing about this is I know I've heard rumbles about Zach going into the mid lane, but I'm honestly expecting it to be going over to Anda, right? Because you have a lot of freedom to just go for a lot of these ganks, and you are going to be bringing enough crowd control that it doesn't matter that your lanes aren't bringing that much crowd control of their own. You're just going to be able to do all of that yourself, and they just need to bring damage. So I like the really effective engage that they're coming out from with Immortals Academy, whereas Evil Genius is going to be giving Contracts in Olaf, which is going to be very exciting. It can really punish Zach early on if they do find each other.
So what's interesting about the Zach pick is a lot of the times when you go for these oddball picks that are not really seen that much in the meta, you're taking a pick that the enemy hasn't played that often in the meta. So even if it is seen as something that's a little bit subpar, something that's more emerging, that's more new, that hasn't been battle tested or whatnot, the element of surprise can be so massive for Immortals when they're not used to dealing with what a Zac does on the map.
True, this is one of the reasons why I like a lot of these pocket picks coming out. Something that is a little bit surprising to the other team is because it is difficult to play against things where you haven't played against them recently. I think it is, obviously telling that a lot of ranged champions kind of struggle to deal with Gwen, but this is a champion that has been so common that people kind of know how to play around it at this point, whereas Zac, people just kind of forget, right? You aren't necessarily going to be respecting the range that he is going to be able to gank you from.
Yeah, you can get really creative with the ganks. That's one of the reasons I love Zac when he first came out as a champion. You can pretty much just gank from any position you really wanted to, especially when you're able to max out that slingshot and really get the range going. So there's a lot of creativity that you have. You even have those really fun moments where you can do like the sideways dragon steal, where you hop from one end of the back of the pit to the other end of it, and you steal it for like the brief second that you're able to get within smite range. There's always fun stuff like that you can do with Zac.
True, it's kind of crazy how far he can really go with that slingshot, but I also want to focus in a little bit on how it's going to be interacting with the Olaf in particular, because we are getting word that there will be a pause at the beginning, so we're going to take a little bit of time here to dissect these champion picks a little bit more thoroughly. The Olaf starting to come back into popularity, which is a little bit surprising to me, but he does have rather good matchups against the Xin Zhao and the Lee Sin in particular, and when he's playable, it means that he's going to be farming really, really quickly, and also looking to try and run over the game, which is something that Evil Geniuses tends to do with the way that Contracts and Jojopyun like to play. They're very aggressive in the mid lane, and they're going to use the tempo in order to try and take your Raptors.
The thing is, though, we need to see Contracts really get his lanes ahead, just because of how devastating Olaf can fall off. Like, those reckless swings, the true damage, it is pretty awesome in the early game until you realize that that number is not going any higher than what it was before. So you definitely need to have that impact, and it's going to be pretty significant if he can have that impact, because we're talking about it. The Jinx is in the bot lane for Team Luke. If Jinx is allowed to farm, if Jinx is allowed to get kills, late game is so hard to deal with. One kill goes off, she gets excited, the movement speed gets buffed, she's running all over the place and taking down anything you really just want to throw at her. Now the question is, can you get in the backline if you are Immortals? You do have the Zac, which can get back there to try and deal with her, but there's not that many tools in the wheelhouse for Immortals to try and hunt her down.
And I guess the question comes down to, do they need to do that, right? Like, you can go kill Team Luke. That's always a way to win the game. And if you can do it, like, you should do it. It is the most direct way to actually just win a team fight. But you don't have to always do that. You do have two marksmen of your own, and you have a Gwen. And between Gwen and Zac, Zac is going to take a long time for this Jinx Lulu to kill. Gwen also just can't be hit for a couple of seconds. So you don't necessarily have to kill the Jinx all that quickly. You can just kill all of her frontliners, and Jinx without any friends is pretty sad. She has to retreat because she doesn't have any ways to get fights started on her own.
Yeah, but that front line is definitely going to be tough to get through, having both the Olaf Nautilus with the buffs coming out from the Lulu. It's definitely a strategy you can go for, and speaking of strategies, what is the strategy we've been seeing from teams, especially as of lately, is the shotgun Barons. And Immortals composition works really well if they want to set up something like that, where they just walk over to the Baron and say, hey, we're just going to take it. We're not bluffing. Good luck.
True, we definitely saw that coming out from Team Liquid in particular yesterday in their games, where what we've typically seen in a lot of professional play for a long time is people just will hide in the fog of war waiting for people to come over, and sometimes people just don't come, right? They just don't walk over, they don't have the blue trinket, but they are just not going to walk in because they don't believe you. But this is a thing where we have opportunities to just hit the Baron. If you don't believe that I'm hitting the Baron, well, and you don't come, it's just a free Baron for us. And Immortals does it rather quickly, right? They're definitely earlier in the priority, probably looking at about 13 to 15 seconds for this composition to take down a Baron, and that is not a lot of time for Evil Geniuses to try and check if they don't already know.
That's kind of sad. We used to have Baron dances, those are gone. I feel like we have Scuttle dances more than Baron dances
Scuttle.
now.
Also, you like Boris there? Very good mustache.
Beautiful mustache. Angus would be jealous.
Yeah, I'm jealous. I can't grow a mustache like that.
That
said,
kinda can.
oh, bonk.
Up here, a little bit of trade, just Viper and Mystiques. Nothing to be seen here. They're just having a good old time.
Well, Viper actually got that whole ward with the aid of Joey, so I think that's enough for him to actually get level 2 off the first wave. So Tony Top not going to be particularly happy about that. He's already going up against one of the most dangerous top laners in all of Academy, and now he's going to be doing it from an experience deficit. Not something you ever want to be seeing in a Gwen matchup in particular, who already has a very dominant level 1 with the E. You just use it, and suddenly you have attack speed and extra damage on your autos.
And once the momentum starts to shift a lot, it is pretty scary on that top side. You know, it's been more normalized to step away from the flash and go for the Ignite Teleport combo. But that does leave you susceptible to a lot of ganks that can come up over towards that top side. And both Gwen and Viego are very receptible if they are able to get some type of lead going. Of course, Gwen can scale a little bit more savagely if she's allowed to, just because of all those autos you can get going on, get the Q empowered. It's pretty vicious.
It is, and these are a couple champions that it's very difficult to actually play against at the level 1 mark, but since they're going up against each other, it kind of neutralizes between the two of them. Both of them have very, very scary abilities to just fight at level 1 because they're both nearly entirely auto-attack based champions, and both Viper and Tony Top just trading rather aggressively.
Ooh, Jojo taking quite a bit of punishment coming out from Pretty. That's the style you usually get when you get that mid-Lucian going on. You know, you're able to get the double up with the passives. You can get creative angles like that to land your Q to get as much harassment as possible, and JoJo's definitely feeling it.
Could be rather tough in the Lucian matchup here in the mid lane, so we'll see if JoJo can really withstand this, right? We said we're going to be paying a lot of attention to how he and Contracts move around, and JoJo having to use his shield rather defensively. I mean, that's what it's for, right? It is a shield, but it also means that he's not going to necessarily have the same kind of mana in order to try and take control of this wave state, and now we're seeing it push back towards his side of the map, which says a couple things. One, Contracts can gank, but also it makes it much more difficult for Contracts to be aggressive around these Scuttle Crabs.
And what I'm putting my eye on now is Anda. He's finishing up his red buff. He's already cleared out the entire top side. Tony Top going to spot that out just now, having a really good idea as to where Anda was. He just pings him out on his red buff without even having vision.
I really like that movement coming in from Tony Top, right? It's always important to know where the enemy jungler is early. They have such a good idea. They know exactly where he is, right? When you see him on a ward, it removes a lot of the ambiguity. So Contract's going to be able to trade this top side real quick. He's going to get the top side Scuttle Crab, and it also means that Viper has to back away because he knows that his jungler is on the bottom side of the map, and he also knows that Contracts didn't contest the bottom Scuttle, which means he's probably top lane.
See, Contracts headed up here right now. The wave is pushing towards Viper, so he's not going to be in any real threat. Contract's just going to take the recall. Hook goes off in the bottom lane, able to get the Flay as well. Mystique's going to return it with the root auto, but only a trade into the HP pool. Nothing too dangerous going off yet.
So after the first jungle clear, we're noticing that there is pretty much a similarity across the entire board between these two teams. You are noticing that the biggest difference might be the fact that Tony Top is currently up a wave over Viper, but the junglers are bang on even in CS. The mid lane is only a very small advantage to Immortals, and the same thing is true in the bottom lane. This hasn't yet become a large lead, whereas Tony Top crashes this wave, but isn't going to have the same kind of opportunity to back unless he does so very quickly.
Porting back in, Viper just trying to clear underneath the tower. Having a rough time against this early game of Tony Top. Two very highly competitive top laners who have put on great performances in games past. Still looking at the routing that's coming out of Contracts, finishing up over towards his blue side, now starting to route up towards the top end once again. As we do have Pretty leaving the lane, just trying to get some deeper vision spot out where Contracts might be going. But all that being said, Mystique's headed towards that top side as well. Eventually looking to set up something in the future, just seeing what's going on. Only going to walk out of the lane for the time being, evaluate the situation, then start making his way back towards the bot side.
Both of the supports, as you said, just coming through, just going to be saying hi. Contracts was not actually seeing the ward from Pretty was not deep enough, so they don't quite know where he is, as Joey, gotta be careful, is doing the smart thing and taking the safe way down. No, he changes his mind!
Oh, there's the root, there's the snare, there's the hook. Joey in a lot of trouble, flashing over the wall is gonna be Contracts. He's gonna be able to grab first blood oh so easily. EG, able to start it up.
There are some junglers that won't be following you over that wall with their flash, but Contracts is going to do it every single time. He doesn't need to know where Zac is. He's confident he's going to be going for that fight, but now they're sitting on vision. This is pretty telegraphed. We'll see if this works out.
Oh, Anda's expecting it. Hook goes right into the tower, waiting for the elastic slingshot. It goes on to Contracts. Now he's able to get the Q, pull in Contracts, get more damage on the Contracts, but there is the ultimate out of JoJo, trying to stop that kill potential, trying to stop that lethal. Anda still on the chase. Here comes the Root, able to get the hook onto Pretty. Pretty will back off. Elastic slingshot once again. Lands onto Mystiques. Cannot land the Q. Flash over the wall from Pretty to be able to stay alive from the zap coming out of Team Luke. A prolonged fight, but ultimately no one going to go down in the mid lane.
That's that's pretty impressive to see that nobody ends up dying from Evil Geniuses in what looked like a pretty rough situation. Contracts couldn't hit back underneath the turret because he was going to take turret aggro, but they did a good job disengaging from that fight, and now Evil Geniuses, a lot of small leads across the board, but the big one still, the fact that nobody's been paying attention top lane in terms of jungler attention might change here very soon as we see Ando walk top lane.
And coming over towards the top side, looking to get a gank onto Tony Top, but you are going to have Contracts in that area as well. See if both junglers are going to be aware. Now looking to jump in is going to be Anda. Lots of damage coming through. Can't get towards a minion to complete the second part of that Q. Health bar still too low. Viper gets the kill on the top side.
That's the trade-off you make when you go for this Ignite instead of having a flash. It's hard to get out of those things. Tony Top does a good job at ignoring the first part of crowd control. Unfortunately, just too slow to leave. And so this big lead that he was starting to build up over Viper completely undone by some attention from Anda. And now the game right on back to even between these two teams.
And it's so unorthodox to try and stop the ganking paths of Anda when he's on the Zac. I mean, you could be behind the tower, still get a gank off. You can be in that little cranny, that little nook between the warded bush and the tower, and still get a gank off Zac's elastic slingshot. So it's a tough position now that he doesn't have that flash. Now opting not to take it, and just has so many ways to get in.
I'm expecting to see him spend a lot more time in this top half of the map, right? We've been seeing Keith and Team Luke. They're pretty even, small lead going over to Immortals. But we're not necessarily seeing any plays. We're not necessarily seeing any real aggression happening down on the bottom because the supports have been roaming so much. Both Mystiques and Joey spending a lot of time in the mid lane. But here, look at this. There's a big wave push coming out from Tony Top. It should crash, and we will likely see a lot of this CS equalize here in just a moment as it gets underneath the turret. Tony Top, we've been seeing him spend a lot of his time after pushing it in, chilling in front of the enemy structure, but now he's going to walk down and clear out some wards, and maybe be able to help Contracts with a Rift Herald if they want to. It is a little bit early, and you don't have the support of your support, but you can still do it.
A lot of attention on Dragon side right now. First Drake is Infernal. Joey walking through the river, just getting some vision. Hasn't been spotted out. Now does get spotted out thanks to that ward coming down. But mostly going to be a safe route. Still attention put over there. No first Drake to be taken yet.
Where's on opposite sides of the map? Anda looking mid, Contracts looking top. Anda goes first.
Oh, here we go. That's the elastic slingshot gank, and how powerful is it? Powerful enough to set up Pretty for a kill in the mid lane, but we are not done. Contracts now getting caught out by Viper. Fight going in. Contracts, the lower he gets, the more dangerous he gets. He got to burst down that HP fast, and Viper is able to do just that.
I mean, we said earlier there are some champions or some players that will choose to go for these fights, and there are some players that won't. Contracts will opt into it almost every single time, and this time just a little bit wrong in terms of how effective he's going to be. Anda gets there just in time, and it's going to be another kill going over to Immortals. This is
wow.
immune. When immune, right? You can't steal the Rift Herald that way. Oh.
Bad spot for Team Luke as he tries to get away, but Keith says no. We'll get the kill over in the bot side, and a great start for Immortals as they go 4-1 9 minutes in.
This is pretty brutal, and we're kind of seeing some of the inconsistency coming in from Evil Geniuses. We saw Contracts pick up the one kill because he opted into the fight, and we saw Contracts give up a kill because he opted into a different one. So Evil Geniuses now going to be playing from the back foot. They have some scaling elements like you identified earlier, Eric, but it's going to be a little bit difficult to leverage them if they aren't ever able to get to those items.
Gotta love this. Zac ganks make it look so easy, Joshi. Any angle, any position, if you don't have a ward there, you should be ready for the threat of the Zac to hop out. And catching him out on rotation right here, coming out from Viper. Smooth play, really risky though. Always remember, Joshi, the lower that Olaf gets, the faster his attack speed gets.
Does, and he was so close to that second reckless swing coming through and actually just dunking Viper in that 1v1. So it's just a small difference, right? He had perfect information. He knew where Anda was. He knew they were going to be able to jump in on top of him and just thought he had enough damage. And the difference between being right and wrong is a kill going over in favor of Immortals. Now they have control of the Rift Herald. Now they have a gold lead across the map. And I'm expecting they're probably going to try and break open this mid lane with how much attention the Immortals support and jungler have been giving this lane.
Yeah, we've been seeing Joey and Mystiques rotating around this mid lane for oh so long, and even doing it right now, having that little dance. Here comes the death sentence, goes out, doesn't land onto Contracts. Contracts will just clear out the control ward for the time being. Anda waiting on the wings. Elastic slingshot set up, goes after Jojo. Not going to land onto Jojo, misses the Q as well. Looking for the punishment, but the lantern from Joey is going to ensure that there is no danger there. Death sentence will not land. Overall goes neutral in the mid lane, but you will get prio to Immortals.
Push comes through. It makes it harder for Evil Geniuses to walk over. They don't have a lot of vision control, but they have the crucial ward, which is showing them whether or not Immortals is actually hitting the dragon.
Oh, here we go. Getting a little bit too close is going to be Mystiques. He gets punished thanks to that hook coming out of Joey. Pretty able to net up that kill, and now the attention is towards the bot side. Immortals setting up for a potential dive over here, but there's not much of a minion wave really left. You're gonna have to start up with Anda. Oh, you don't need a minion wave when you got Shelly. Shelly now gonna hit the rift, but here comes the teleport. Jojo will join! So much damage to come out! Keith goes down, and here comes the pain. Flashing forward is gonna be Anda. He will score another one. Pretty grabs it, and this bot lane forfeit. Immortals just destroy and annihilate Evil Geniuses on the bot side.
Whenever you see a play like this, Eric, you gotta ask, what is happening on the other side of the map? Are you getting an advantage there? Well, you're getting maybe a plate as Tony Top crashes a wave, but it still hasn't crashed, whereas Immortal's gonna be grabbing a full dragon and a full turret after picking up a, I believe it was a 3-for-1 during that entire dive. And look at this, Tony Top, he gets a plate in return. This is nearly a 4,000, 5,000 gold lead coming out for Immortals as they grab the dragon as well. It's like, look at that range, too, coming out from Anda. His engage range, absolutely nuts. So I don't expect Immortals to slow down anytime.
It is so much fun watching Zach, but we got to take another look at that play that happened in the bot side. Trying to set it up with Shelly, but the damage that just comes out of Keith is absolutely massive when he's able to get all that splash.
Props to Evil Geniuses for recognizing that they're not going to be surviving this. They just got to try and get something in return. Contracts, again, so close to the Reckless Swing to get a second kill, but just not quite enough as Evil Geniuses going to be transitioning some attention towards the top side of the map. Mystique's spending a lot of time out of lane. You're noticing it is starting to be an experience differential between him and Joey. He's only level 6, Joey's level 7, and Team Luke can't feel safe going down here to the bottom lane as long as Pretty is there, and he's 4-0.
Mystique's trying to get some vision, but constantly being denied by Joey. Now here comes the engage coming out of Immortals as they hop on to Contracts. Mystiques will be able to grab Joey. All in the meanwhile, Ragnarok is going to do nothing. Viper grabs a kill. It's going to be Pretty grabbing another one over on the back end. 2 down. Pretty flashes over the wall and wants more. Tries to grab Tony Top. Mystiques is going to be the bodyguard to try and block, to defend for his top laner. He will pay with his life as Pretty is able to go take him down and go dominating 3 down for Evil Geniuses. It costs nothing for Immortals.
I'll be honest, Eric, at this point, like, this goose is pretty close to cooked. Viper's going to take a couple turret shots here, but they will be able to walk out. 11-2 at 14.5 minutes, a 7,000, 6,000 gold lead coming out for Immortals with a team composition that might be outscaled a little bit. Is going to be a very tough sell for Evil Geniuses to come back. The only person who has any kills on Evil Geniuses right now is Contracts, and we know he's a strong player, but when the rest of his support system just isn't there to enable this Olaf to be strong in these fights, I don't think there's a whole lot left for them to do. Like, notice how quickly he gets burned down during this fight. Gwen just jumps on top of him, Zac is there, and even with all the Lulu buffs coming through, it's not enough to keep him alive for more than a couple seconds.
Man, that's one of the most feels bad moments when you are playing Jungle Olaf in the early game. You just feel so squishy. When you fall behind, it's that much worse. And he's not even supposed to be an inherently squishy champion. He's supposed to be that frontline fighter bruiser all up in your face. Can't really do that when you start falling behind as a squad, because Immortals all over the map are getting gold leads.
Yeah, well, we'll see if they can pick up something. Viper is extending rather heavily for this wave and is coming down, but there's already 3 members here. Good immune.
All right, Viper trying to make a good escape. Anda is not too far off. 1 versus 3, now joining the fray. To make it a 4 versus 3. Now it's completely turned on to its head. Anda flipped that in a heartbeat. A double kill over to Anda for all his troubles.
I like the idea from Evil Geniuses. Unfortunately, they are just too far behind. Anda can get into fights from so far away. So Immortals going to be bringing more members towards the mid lane. They're going to be taking down at least one structure and threatening a second one. Jojo Pyun is pretty far behind, has the Shiralia, so has movement speed to give his team, but it doesn't matter if you don't have any stats.
All right, here we go. Another engage onto Jojo. Jojo gets pushed on in, but it's only to get him away from the tower as Viper works on it. Now Anda starting to back off, and so is the rest of the Immortal squad over in this bot lane. Hook gonna miss. Mystique's not able to land it, but there is the flank coming in from Tony top. They're looking to make Immortals pay. They're gonna do just that. In the bloblet form goes the Zac, but Viper, down he will fall. 2 kills going over to Evil Geniuses, but all meanwhile, Contracts did fall somewhere in that one.
He falls on the top side of the map, and so even though we're getting a couple kills, which are good for Evil Geniuses, they are going to still be at the cost of structures. You're going to be losing another lane or another turret up in the top lane, and champions respawn. Turrets don't. I know this is shocking to some of you in audience right now, but it is a permanent advantage that Immortals is picking up. They're getting more map control. They're not even still in a position where they can try and get some plates in the top lane. 40 seconds left on the dragon, and Immortals, after taking the top lane turret, come down to the bottom side of the map, take this dragon in force.
Does seem like they're headed in that direction. Got 4 going over towards the mid lane, still sending pretty towards the bot side to go catch that wave. Dragon another 30 seconds before it spawns, and the vision is diminishing for Evil Geniuses, only having 1 control ward in that area, and sending more members over towards his top side. But I have a question if maybe they're thinking of going after the Rift Herald, prioritizing that, not looking to take the challenge of Immortals as they head over towards that Drake area.
Seems pretty smart to me. You really can't take this fight. It's also only Dragon 2, and it's a Cloud Dragon. So, like, Evil Geniuses don't really need to be here. It's not a fight you're going to win almost ever. You know, there's that 1%, but 99% is a pretty bad odds to take when giving over a bunch of kills can lose you a whole lot more. I wonder if Viper's going to come down and try and contest this. He is going to see that Contracts is doing it currently alone. He might be enough to stop them from even taking the Rift Herald.
But this is giving Immortal the confidence to just go straight up with this siege and destroy this tower. Evil Geniuses, they got to do this Rift Herald much faster. Viper's just playing defense here, just playing distraction. Still can't seem to take it down, and now they're at your inhibitor tower. Anda's just going to go straight for the engage. Won't find it onto Team Luke as the teleport's being channeled out of Jojo. Not much help left onto this inhibitor tower. Out comes the Super Mega Death Rocket. Gets pretty really low, but he will not fall. Immortals able to get the retreat after getting a lot of damage onto that inhibitor tower, almost taking it down.
Will regen back up to 1/3 of its HP, but Immortals still in dominant control of the map. The Rift Herald is picked up by Contracts, so that's a bit of a consolation prize, but it's going to do less damage to a structure than we just saw happen to the bottom lane inhibitor turret. So Pretty, after taking a couple of turret shots, is going to be back on the map, has the Cyrilda's Grudge, making the calling so dangerous. Whenever you hit the one bullet, it makes the second bullet that much easier to land, but Immortals still not paying attention to the dragon. They just want to fight.
Looking for the fight. Anda charges up the Elastic Slingshot, will get it onto Mystique's. Nothing to return the Q on, so Mystique's will be able to get out, but that kind of shows you the mindset of Immortals. If they have a chance to fight, they're pretty much going to take it. Anda can get creative, and he can do these engagements whenever Immortals see fit.
Well, now they see fit to be on the top side of the map. They're still not hitting the dragon, Eric. They just don't really feel like they need to do so. 20 seconds until the Baron spawns, and they're taking away the top side of the map away from Evil Geniuses, so it's becoming harder and harder. The Evil Geniuses squad to even find places to farm as they lose their entire top side of the jungle. Immortals going to be pushing out in the top side, and I have to imagine soon, I promise guys, they're going to try and pick up one of these objectives as soon as Evil Geniuses stops giving them opportunities to try and fight.
This is a battle royale. We're going straight for the fights here. Only action, Joshi. Only bloodshed. It seems that might be the motto for Immortals, as they have been taking a lot of these fights and just ignoring those neutral objectives. But finally, Joshi, they're headed towards the Drake area. Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe just making you think. Maybe just making you guess. They do see Team Luke going after Team Luke with the calling and trying to find the engagement. We'll head over towards the side, trying to find the flank. it will stop the inside track from Evil Geniuses, so this tower should be going down.
It's very easy to pick this up now that you force Evil Geniuses to the top half of the map. You just walk up the lane and control the choke points. So what are Immortals going to do with this tempo? Again, they still haven't picked up the Dragon, but they're going to be eating all of Evil Genius's bottom side of the map now. Blue buff going over to Viper. They're now going to finally start up. Anda is going to hit it, but it's going to take him a long time to do this as Zach. I don't expect any contest to come through, but it does mean that the rest of his team is going to be fanning out and just picking up their own farm, picking up their own camps, instead of just trying to take everything away from Evil Genius.
It's all right, Joshi. Dragon finally went down. That's all that matters at the end of the day. It was there for so long. We're getting, what, our third Drake of the game around 25, 26 minutes?
Yep.
We got momentum on our side.
All right, this is Contracts. Classic.
Yeah, it's not on pretty side, though. Actually?
Wow,
Actually?
I'm shocked.
Actually, he gets out?
I'm shocked Contracts didn't flash over that wall after him. That's the classic Contracts play that we always know and love, but I guess he's just feeling that he doesn't know if he can stick to Pretty if he does choose to flash over. So he's going to get out. It's just a flash, and that's all that it costs Pretty.
Wow. Pretty able to get away from that one. Interesting scenario here, but rough scenario for JoJo. Best to try and run away. 3 members on top of him, waiting for the death sentence. Here comes the root, and it's all too easy for Immortals as they get that kill on the JoJo.
Gravity Gun makes it so easy to run people down. You just tag them once, you wait for the flash, and then you press Q, and now they have the freedom to try and go for this Baron. Keith on the wrong side of the wall to do any DPS, so small window, but window's already closed, as now Joey's going to be trying to zone out the members of Evil Geniuses. Remember, Contracts can try and get in, but his smite is going to be the same. They changed it 500 at the beginning, and 900 after you've used your first 5 smites, so he doesn't have a smite advantage.
Contracts trying to get closer. Viper wants to play the defense here, and here comes the engagement over the wall. Pretty just lights him up. Will grab 1 kill while going godlike, but Team Luke so far uncontested. He's getting in the rockets, but he can't get the health bars low enough as he watches 2 of his teammates go down. They're only going to grab Joey. To be fair, though, Evil Geniuses were able to stop the Baron.
They crashed the Rift Herald mid lane, but the turret doesn't even die. I mean, this is still looking pretty dire right now, Eric. It's a 10,000 gold lead as, yep, they are now checking the Baron with the ultimate from Jinx. They don't have blue trinkets, they don't have any wards, they don't feel like they can safely walk over, and I don't know if Immortals know that information, if they were looking at the Baron at that time, but it is an opportunity for them to just walk right on back, and hey, repeat the play like we saw here. Immortals jump a couple of members over the wall, and it's so hard to interact with Gwen as long as the circle's up, buying a lot of time. But then they can all just hop the wall, and suddenly you're fighting this enemy team in a choke. Brutally murdered a couple of members of Evil Geniuses, and Team Luke, he's getting some good damage now, but once you notice he has no front line, he can be in a very tough spot.
Oh, here comes the setup. Anda going straight for the engage. Will not find too much more. JoJo's able to get out, does burn some flashes on his way into here. Now over the wall, looking to find Contracts is Viper, and that's what he'll be able to grab. Anda comes in with the elastic slingshot. 5-member strong is going to be Immortals, as the flank coming out of Tony top is an option that he doesn't exactly want to go for when he's realized he's this outnumbered. So Immortals now headed over for the Baron.
Ando was the only one who went low in that fight. You're noticing that he's regenning right now with the Warmog. So without a smite contest coming through from Evil Geniuses, the only thing they can try and do is go for a fight, but they are so far behind. Good job blocking the rocket.
Blocking that super mega death rocket. There is no smite, so there is no fight to be had over this Baron going into the pocket of Immortals.
I feel like this is kind of super telling, Eric. The way that we've been watching Evil Geniuses play this game, they went for a couple of big plays early on. They tried to get Contracts ahead, but he took a couple of fights that unfortunately just weren't winning. He flipped a coin, came up tails this time, and because of how this team plays, whenever they're in a hole, they oftentimes find themselves in deeper holes because they keep trying to go for these plays saying, oh, we just played it a little bit wrong. We'll be able to fix that next time. And this is a situation where Immortals, they can try and do things with the Zac, and they have been trying to do things rather consistently, but they can just kind of let Evil Geniuses trap themselves like we saw bottom lane just a couple of minutes ago.
And if you're a Counter Logic fan, you're watching this game with tears in your eyes. Immortals taking this victory right now, if they are able to clean this one up, which they should. This would be a massive upset if they don't. This is mathematically the elimination of counter logic gaming, and it grabs a little bit more security over to Immortals. Now Immortals trying to secure that security as they head in for the bot lane tower, able to grab that inhibitor turret, as well as the mid lane turret going down. Now 2 inhibitors exposed. Filing away is going to be Immortals. Will Evil Geniuses look to pull the trigger here? You can see Team Luke. He's been trying to come online, but he hasn't got to those late game stages where Jinx can start destroying the Rift, can start destroying backlines. Now, Immortals are in your face. Here comes the Death Sentence going on to Mystiques. Mystiques gets autoed away and destroyed. Joey's going to grab the first kill, immediately having to back off is Ando once he finds the engage. But the rest of the squad of Immortals, they don't need to back off. Those health bars are high, and they're looking to make Evil Geniuses die. They will clean up so much. But Tony Top will be able to grab 2. Now still trying to stay in this. He has 3 members of Immortals right into his face, right into the Nexus. Immortals feel good about this victory. It was dominating. Immortals take game number 1.
Whew. Well, I feel like that was pretty predetermined from about the 10-ish minute mark during that game. Immortals definitely found a pretty big lead kind of across the map and never really let it go. So Evil Geniuses now a bit on the back foot, but hey, the thing about their playstyle is they can bounce back really easily. We can see game 1 quickly turn very effectively into a game 2 victory from Evil Geniuses. So I feel like we saw one side of Evil Geniuses. I'm hoping we can see the other.
I'm just curious how this draft is going to shape up for the next game, though, because we saw that Zac and Anda look good on that Zac. Those ganks, whew, mwah, pristine. He was really pivotal to the success of Immortals in that game, especially when Contracts had that lead going from early.
He did. I mean, he got that first blood. He was able to run around a little bit, but they went for the dive in the mid lane, coming out from Evil Geniuses, and while they didn't die, they end up losing a lot of time. They were trying to spend a lot of effort going for some of these dives. They really tried to pick up the Rift Herald earlier, Contracts, ended up going for a 1v1 with Viper, and all of these small decisions coming out, they understand they're taking large risks, and they will get huge rewards if they work, but Immortals just doing a good job stifling Evil Geniuses everywhere they go on the map.
So Immortals able to take game number 1, but we are not done just yet. This is a best of 2. Can Evil Geniuses bring it back? We're going to find out in a little bit. We'll throw it over to short break. When we return, we'll be back with more LCS Academy.